Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 12 mini and compare it against the iPhone XS and see which particular phones are the better ones for you. Now, the big thing I will definitely tell you is that if you have all the money in the world, definitely getting the latest and greatest phone, so at least a phone that's newer than the other one, might be the better option here. In this case, you can see something like the iPhone 12 mini. This is a great phone. I think it's a really good phone. The XS is probably, a good phone too. But definitely when it comes down to both, I would say the 12 mini might be the better one. But the XS does have some capability behind it as well. So we'll take a look at it throughout this whole entire video. But if at any point you want to go ahead and kind of buy some phones that I personally would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description below. You can get that from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of these particular phones. The iPhone XS, which came out back in 2018, on the front side of this particular phone is basically going to be going through and giving you a pretty solid, it's going to be a pretty solid 5.8 inch Super Retina OLED display. Now this type of panel is a good panel, right? I think this panel looks pretty good for the most part. It's definitely not like a perfect panel by any means necessary, but it still is like a good panel. It's a good looking phone. And I do think that in and of itself is kind of a nice thing to kind of keep in mind here. So if you are about to go through and pick up a phone, this one does a decent job. Again, it's not necessarily perfect, but like I said, if you are about to go through and pick up a phone, I think this thing is like pretty much okay when it comes down to it. Now, with something like the iPhone 12 mini, you have to remember that this type of phone is definitely going to be giving you, I think, a better experience in some ways. So with the iPhone 12 mini, this particular device is going to be going through and giving you basically a 5.4 inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. So this panel is going to be slightly smaller, but it is kind of a better type of panel when it comes down to it. So with something like the iPhone 12 mini, it still is like a fairly high resolution. I do like that a lot about this type of phone. So you're able to go through and get a device like this and still get like a pretty good, capable device for the most part, which I think is something that's really important to kind of keep in mind. So you're able to go through and get a device from that caliber, which I think is actually something that's really good. You're still getting the notch up top. And although the iPhone 12 mini, it is a smaller phone, I do think the panel itself is actually really, really good when it comes down to it from that side. Now, on top of that, another very important thing to keep in mind here too, is that with the iPhone, with both these iPhones, they're both giving you lightning ports at the bottom, which is a little bit different nowadays because, as you can probably imagine, we now basically have, USB Type-C on basically all iPhones. But having a lightning port is still good, it's still okay, but it would be nicer had we had a little bit of a better port when it came down to it. But still, it's not the biggest deal in the world. On the back side, you're getting your glass backs. So they're just standard glass backs here. Nothing super crazy, nothing we haven't already seen before. So that right there could be kind of a nice, interesting thing to kind of keep in mind there too. So you are getting like a pretty capable type of device from that particular perspective as well. So there's not really anything super insane here that we haven't already seen before. I think that's kind of one of the big things and big key takeaways to kind of keep in mind there from these particular devices, because you're still able to go through and get phones that still feel fairly premium. Now, there are some big things to keep in mind here too. Number one, if you are about to go through and pick up these phones, keep in mind that the 12 mini can still probably be a little bit more expensive than something like an iPhone, than something like an iPhone 12 mini. So 12 mini might be more expensive than the iPhone XS. So kind of keep that in mind. It isn't the biggest deal in the world, but if you are trying to go through and buy a phone that might be giving you better capability, you might kind of want to look elsewhere. But again, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it is just one of those other things to kind of keep in mind there. Now, when it comes down to the camera layout, this is another really, really important thing to kind of remember here as well. So if you're trying to go through and buy a phone, right, if you're looking at both, they both are basically giving you, dual camera setups on the backside. So I do think that is a really nice thing to have. I love having a dual camera setup, and you're essentially going to be getting that here inside of these devices as well. So that right there is a nice thing. Being able to go through and pick up these types of phones that are going to be giving you that type of capability, as always, is a really nice thing to have. With something like the iPhone XS, you're getting 4K at 60 on the back, but you are only getting 4K at, you're getting 1080p on the front, which I feel like that in and of itself is kind of a downside, right? I feel like if I'm about to go through and pick up a phone, I kind of want to be able to go through and buy a device that's giving me a little bit of better capability here. And that is kind of what's going on here. So with something like the iPhone XS, I feel like this phone is still going to be giving you a pretty good job and doing a pretty good experience, but I do think the iPhone 12 mini is probably going to be the one that's going to be giving you a better type of experience here for the most part. So from that side too, that is kind of one of those things to keep in mind there as well. Albeit it's not the biggest deal in the world, it could just be one of those other minor things to keep in mind there for the most part as well. So, in my personal opinion, that is kind of one of those other things to kind of keep in mind there, but like I said, it's not really that big of a deal here either. But the 12 mini is giving you the better type of camera when it comes down to it. Now, on top of that, when it kind of comes down to some other things within these phones too, when it comes down to basically, the software support that these phones are going to be giving you, you have to remember that the iPhone XS, it's still here. It's still going to be, pretty good. They're both supported with software right now. But if you are wanting the phone that's going to be giving you a longer software support, definitely something like the iPhone 12 mini is going to be the one that will probably end up giving you a longer software support for the most part. So the XS, although it's still on iOS, 18, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be giving you any more software updates above it. And I do think that's kind of what just ends up happening here for the most part, right? So if you're going to go through and, pick up a phone, you probably want to go and buy a phone that's going to be giving you better software support. And with something like the iPhone XS, I would probably say that's kind of what's going on here, that the 12 mini is probably the better one when it comes down to it from that particular perspective. Although it's not the biggest deal in the world, once again, it is going to be one of those things that you might just end up seeing from that particular perspective. Now, on top of that, another important thing to keep in mind here too is the fact that with something like both of these phones for the most part, you're basically going to be able to go through and still get a phone that's going to be giving you pretty decent performance. The XS is not that best, but it has the Apple A12 Bionic chip inside of it with 4 gigabytes of RAM, which isn't too terrible. I still think it's a pretty okay performing phone for the most part, but it's not really anything, super great. The iPhone 12 mini, on the other hand, is giving you the Apple A14 Bionic chip inside of it. So this phone is going to be giving you an overall better type of experience. And I do think that right there is another one of those really nice things to keep in mind here as well. So if you are about to go through and pick up a phone, it is a really nice thing to be able to go through and pick up a device that's going to be giving you a slightly better experience from that particular perspective. So again, although it's not the biggest deal in the world, you are definitely going to be getting a little bit of a better type of device from that particular perspective when it comes down to it from that particular side. So the 12 mini is definitely, I would say, the better performing device from that side. But again, not the biggest deal in the world, but you are going to be getting the better type of device from that side when it comes down to it. So overall, to kind of sum up this whole entire comparison, what I definitely will tell you is that in my personal opinion, I definitely do think a device like an iPhone 12 mini is probably the better phone when it comes down to it from that side. Like if you are about to go through and pick up a phone, that's kind of the one that I would see and look at as probably being the better one, right? Although it's not the biggest deal in the world, you're probably going to be getting an overall better type of experience inside of something like an iPhone 12 mini than the iPhone XS. I think the XS is still okay for the most part, but I do think you have better options here. And I would probably tell you the iPhone 12 mini is a way better phone here than something like the iPhone XS. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.